Welcome to That Annuity Show, the podcast that will make you an expert in explaining annuities to your clients. Give us 30 minutes each week and we'll shave hours from your client presentations. Now, here's your host, Paul Tyler.
Hi, this is Paul Tyler with another episode of That Annuity Show. And with me are two of our regular co-hosts, Ramsey and Mark. How are you, gentlemen?
We're great.
Hey, good to be back.
Good.
Well,
And
thank you, Paul.
Good. Will Moorcroft says his regards. He got a little busy with some stuff we had back at the ranch and says just be compliant, Joe. So that's what we've just got to be compliant. And with us today is a very, very special guest, Mr. Joe Jordan, the man who almost needs no introduction. However, I still will for some of the people newer in the business who may not have, may have just crawled out from under a rock. But I know Joe as a unbelievable wholesaler, manager of wholesalers. I would say somebody who is amazingly ahead of his time. I remember generating leads before there were lead generators, just doing remarkable things in terms of changing, a company that we both worked at from doing nothing but life insurance to taking annuities and retirement planning and sort of embracing that as sort of a core of our business. Helping people not only understand the product, but understand the emotions. And boy, just being a pain in the ass, Joe, to those insurance executives didn't know what they were doing. So tell me, what are you doing today? And we just let's sort of talk a little bit about state of the state here of the planning environment. So Joe?
Well, yeah, I'll be glad to do that. And I'll talk about the environment we're in right now. A lot of people are spreading doom and gloom. I think this is a great opportunity. A mindset to think about where we are right now is this happening to me or is it happening for me? And that's something that I think we need to look at. The other thing that I think is happening, and I've seen it because I've been in the business since 1974, the driving force behind the idea of a holistic plan and one person to help solve that is really coming from clients. It's not coming from regulators. They're just along for the thing. And the fact of the matter is you have to begin to accept that. Most people in financial services are very product oriented. They're very focused from a monetary point of view, which isn't all bad. But the other side of the coin is, since this is customer driven, you really got to understand that we have to be more client focused. As an industry, we have not been. All right. And one of the things that really got me thinking this way was there was a survey done by one of the big survey firms. It escapes me now. And what it did was it took a look at people from a standpoint or professions from a standpoint of ethics and believability. And the only ones that were beneath us was Congress and car sales. Okay. And I began to think that's going to have an issue. Okay. Because, that's what we do. We serve clients. And so the number one was nurses. And you know what, in this environment, you see why, right? And the other ones underneath them was service organizations. And what I think we have to evolve from is less of a sales organization to more of a service type organization. And there are two fundamental foundations of service organizations. One of them is the idea of humility, and the other one is maturity. And humble people don't think less of themselves. They just think of themselves less.
Well, yeah. And so I imagine I'm an agent today, Mark,
Okay.
like, where's my head? Like, kind of describe, I'm not doing my regular business. I'm sitting in my house. What do you see in the field today?
Yeah, I see a lot of people viewing it exactly as Joe mentioned, as an opportunity. I mean, it's adaptation to the new environment. And then there's some people that are getting paralyzed, that really don't know how to adjust. And I think those are the folks that really need our help in terms of getting them to engage, view this as an opportunity. This is a great way to, amplify your business, make it more efficient. And when things get back to normal, use it as a building block, to really make your availability to clients much greater.
Joe, like, wait a second. This is not, I didn't sign up for this.
Well, I think that's what you got to do. You got to turn it around, and it's the idea, is this happening to me or for me? Just think about it, what we're doing right now. I mean, adoption is the new innovation, right? A lot of these tools are here, but why change? Well, guess what? There's a lot of people who are learning how to use Zoom and all of this other stuff, and they could be a lot more efficient going forward. So, I mean, that's just a huge opportunity. The other thing is right now is, as I'm saying, don't waste this crisis, right? I mean, you should get back to your touch with your clients to tell them what a great job you've done for them and reinforce it. And the other thing you should be doing is also, it's a great way to increase the number of people that you have as clients, because a lot of people are hiding. So it's really fundamentally accepting the idea of change, knowing that all of this is not bad. And the other thing about the holistic planning is the fact that it's not just a question of getting the people the highest performance or just focusing. Most financial planning structures are built on just retirement. Well, we did the research. We found out that, guess what? Everyone dies, okay? We also found out that people are living a lot longer these days. So it has to incorporate a whole series of different products that solve their problem. So I think the fundamental thing to understand is that from a consumer point of view, people are looking for someone to sit down with them and to solve their problem. They need a face-to-face working in conjunction with technology to be able to make those things happen.
So just going back to what you said, reinforce what I did right for them. What did I do right, Joe? Was I ran a great illustration. I sold them explained a bunch of numbers,
Well, I think to some extent, if you're only in the wealth management situation, one of the things about just being in wealth management, all I do is investments, and which is not a total plan in my book, okay, is the fact that people feel losses twice as bad as they feel gains, okay? And so when there's a gain, and even if you do good, there's someone who always does better, So, I mean, that's one of the issues you have. Being able to sell other products that provide some forms of guarantees or life insurance or whatever, that stuff's in the main right now, right? I mean, this is the first crisis, financial crisis, where we have the mortality and health is an issue. And people are buying 1-800-BUY term insurance, and some of them can't get it anymore. Older people can't buy buying life insurance right now. You don't know what you got till it's gone. So it's really the idea. This is a time and place to begin to think from a holistic point of view and where people are at. I don't know anyone who doesn't wish they had a sizable life insurance policy they bought 10 years ago that perhaps has living values on it, or that they had a particular product that stemmed the downside and at least kept them stable where they are, or provides a guaranteed lifetime income for life. And so I think that's the place where people have got to see this is an opportunity to not only change my behavior by using technology more efficiently, but also to think through the process and the types of products that I sell my people, and how appreciative are they when in fact an environment like this comes up.
So I've got a quick question. So Joe, like, are you seeing advisors that are getting this right? Like, what are some of the key traits of some of the advisors or advisor organizations that you think are actually solving this problem in the right way?
Well, I think the people, because I've spoken to people who are both on the optimistic side and the pessimistic side, right? And the optimistic ones seem to be part of organizations where the leader of that organization was taking down the idea of using Zoom and trying to use some of this technology, thinking ahead. And I've created organizations that are of a support mechanism for them to be able to do multiple things, or even to do things they don't necessarily have to do it, they partner with others. So those types of organizations are the ones that I see are beginning to almost thrive in this type of environment.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Being in a physical situation with somebody, I can connect better emotionally. Joe, I mean, how do I do it via Zoom? How do I sort of tell my purpose, my noble purpose, on a screen like this? Can I?
No, I think you're right. I mean, the jury's out, but some people seem to be doing it. Look at me, man. All my revenue came from giving speeches, for crying out loud, and they is gone, And so I've been doing a few of these, and it seems to be coming off great. So there are some behavioral things that we have to alter, but I think you should be. Look, here's the point: you got to be optimistic. Okay, optimists are not Pollyannas. What they are is they know there's serious problems, but they believe that they can be solved. And one of the great ways to stay optimistic, okay, is from a standpoint of feeling gratitude. Okay, gratitude is a great environment for you to be able to see that. I'll tell you what, this happened to me last week. Some guy calls me up. He heard me speak 6 years ago, and he said, as a result of that speech, it changed my life. He was attributing all of his success to me. I've gotten calls like this before, but this was different. This guy has Gratitude Friday, and on Friday he calls one person a day, a Friday, and tells them what impact they had on their life. And so it made me feel great, made him feel great, and I'm starting to do it. The issue is gratitude is the thing that gets you off the mindset. It changes the brain chemistry to shift to an optimist. And I'll tell you, when everyone's down in bed, and that was it, Downbeat Debbie or whatever that thing was from Saturday Night Live, is the idea that when you're optimistic, you're incredibly attractive to people. Even people who are really downcast say, man, and you know what, they'll remember that. And so that's one of the fundamental things. There's a lot to be grateful for right now, okay? For being in this country, for crying out loud, or if your family's intact and it's there. You know, all those things are really crucial. The other thing is this, look, medicine can extend life, but I think you guys, or we deal with the quality of life. So you have to bring in those thoughts to begin to alter your mindset towards the idea of optimism, making you incredibly, attractive. And then understanding that you're in this business, not just for yourself. It's the idea that you deal from a higher purpose, that you're there to help people and in a way that no one else can. And I believe if you do that, then what that gives is, it gives you the courage to make the phone calls to deal with the negativity.
Yeah, I'm seeing kind of a funny positive byproduct of all this show. You know, we live in this development. You know, I think you've been up here once to where we live, but you know, listen, it was a set for a Netflix show about living in suburbia. They put us in New Jersey, not New York. Talk about it. I don't know. I don't want to insult people from New Jersey, but probably the population has doubled here in the last 3 months because all the kids have come back from school, just like mine. You know, gave up their apartments in New York. I've got one who was living in New York, has come out, stayed with us, lived with us. All of a sudden, families are all out biking together. They're running together. They're walking together. I think it's, in some sense, you know, if you take away the job loss, take away the fear, take away the health, and I know people have been impacted on all of these fronts. I do think we're kind of hitting a time where people are kind of reflecting on what really is important. And when you think, Joe, to me, when I think more about how important my family is really at the end of the day, it's actually a pretty good time to have a discussion about, you know, the obligation I have to protecting myself in retirement, protecting my family if I'm not here. I mean, how do you do this without feeling like you're exploiting, you know, the situation, you know, taking advantage of a crisis, but not unduly reaping benefits?
You know, that's a very good question, because I have this thing, don't waste this crisis. And a couple of people came back and said, you know, what kind of a cavalier guy you are, and they missed the whole point, okay?
Right.
Because people in our business are human beings too, and so I'm just trying to wake them up. I said, this is the time where you really shine. This is when, you know, this is how you earn your money. You know, what happens is when you look at compliance, everyone's talking about the idea of, oh, your fees are too high and you rip people off. No, this is when you make it. We've already established, okay, you know, the Thaler, the guy who did who wrote the book, and he won the Nobel Prize for saying people don't use logic when they make financial decisions. When people have to make a decision and the penalty for getting it wrong is high, they want to talk to somebody. And so a lot of times, look, a well-timed intervention can be worth a decade's worth of fees. It's not about fees, it's about the quality of your advice. And all products are already at zero levels. There are things, you know, no commissions. That's not the issue. The issue is the advice given to people, because the other aspect that's changing the world is longevity. People have never lived this long. And so, you know what, no government, no company can deal with this issue. So it's like what Nick Murray says, yo-yo, you're on your own. And so that's why I think you should be incredibly optimistic about this business. Because at the end of the day, one of the things you help to do is to give people, you know, independence and dignity. Those are the things that should be bouncing around in your head. Those are the things that should be there. You should be looking at stories in terms of the impact that your products like this have had, or plans have had on other people. And I don't think we spend enough time in financial services. We're always coming out with the next left brain thing. Look, people feel first and they rationalize later. and we got it mixed up. And I think it has to go the other way. And when you think about it, what people buy, okay, they buy hope, they buy simplicity, they buy stability, they buy simplicity in financial services products. That's what they buy, and those are all intangibles, and we always come with the tangible. So I think there's kind of a mind shift there.
I'm totally with you there. I'm building an entire business around, simple lifetime income solutions. So agree completely. So much of what you said just, really resonates on a lot of fronts, and you too, Paul. So what you were talking about in terms of family and being able to reconnect with other things, I think there's this historic moment where everybody's off the treadmill at the same time. Like in a world where you're off the treadmill and the rest of the world is not, then you experience FOMO, but everybody's off the treadmill. Everybody has a chance to sort of reassess what's important. And, in terms of this, in terms of being, having trouble dealing with the new technology and everything else, like at the end of the day, like, I don't think any of us has any choice. Like the world is changing. We either have to change with it or not. But here's the thing, that those that do make the change are really going to excel. And so we should just encourage everybody to, again, take that attitude of gratitude that you've highlighted so well and translate that into, the new version of oneself.
Gratitude Friday. I listen. I'm in.
Isn't that great?
I'm signed up for it. Yeah.
You might get a call.
Yeah, that's good. It's yeah. Well, it's or you may, Joe. It's listen. I've just been recycling all the stuff that I watched you do here for the last few years. So it's interesting. Yeah. So
I just want to make one other quick point. Okay,
Yeah.
that you talked about with families and everything. I always ask people, because my book's Living a Life of Significance. It's how many people want to live a life of significance, and everyone puts their hands up. So it's 4 pillars. Okay, it's belonging, purpose, storytelling, okay, and transcendence. And belonging, with the rise of social media and the decline of family values and religion, okay, people have never felt more isolated and alone. We're connected like no time before in terms of all the electronic stuff, but they're not there. The UK, Yale did a study and found out the more people use Facebook, the worse they feel. Okay, why? Because no one posts they had a lousy day or the dog died, right? It's all this idyllic crap, and everyone knows it's bullshit, but that's the way they do it.
I don't know. You should see Mark's posts are just depressing.
Because look, at the end of the day, it's others. See, it's the thing you hit on. It's others that give our lives meaning and purpose by providing community and connection. So I think there's an avalanche of this thing, of a reaction against a lot of this technology. Okay. The second one is purpose, and that requires a commitment that's greater than what's in it for you. The third is storytelling. All wisdom comes from specific human experiences, and too much of our stuff is all storytelling and metaphors, right? I mean, the Oracle of Omaha, right? He has the best ones, right? They asked him, what should you do when you're investing in a bull market? He said, a rising tide raises all boats. When the water comes out, you see us swimming naked, So you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out what that is. It's also a little funny too. And humor and stress can't exist in the same environment. So that's kind of more of a human thing. And finally, transcendence is that feeling you get when you do something that's really worthwhile. So we're really talking to people about the idea of behavioral change to go from a sales to a service situation, and then beginning to think from more on human terms, in terms of connection, instead of rationalizations.
You said earlier something about humility. Can you repeat that again?
Yeah, I didn't finish the thing. It's the idea of the fundamentals of service organizations. Humility. Humble people don't think less of themselves; they just think of themselves less.
Yeah.
That was it.
And the other one is the idea of maturity. And maturity isn't necessarily being older; it's seeing things from another person's perspective. And so that's kind of the gain in terms of when you see from services, you're always trying to find out how you're feeling. That's another thing, is don't ask people, what do you think about this? Ask them how they feel about it. It sounds subtle, but it's a fundamental change in terms of, connecting with people at the right level.
Well,
you make a connection, and somebody feels an affability, and then you start making, those connections.
So maybe, Joe, start with, how do you feel?
Yeah, how do you feel? Yeah. Wow. Well, that's it. There's well, I grew up in a sales organization, and there's winners and losers, right? And how you going to beat this poor bastard to death to win? And that ain't humble, okay? And in the long run, it's not good. But that's the other thing. You have to understand, you can't do that with everybody. Even with your best efforts, you're not going to make a sale. So sometimes you have to say, next. And that's why I'll tell you, the business is built on two premises, right? Prospecting and everything else, right? So the minute you stop prospecting, you're dead. You got to feel good about what you do. So that's a mindset to look at this thing. Being optimistic is a way to do that. Being in gratitude is the way to create optimism that creates that other part that gets you to do the things that you don't want to do. And then I think that's a very rewarding career. So, and look upon this thing. Now I'm having to do different things and communicate through this technology and everything. How much better is it going to make me feel or do?
Joe, you mentioned earlier in terms of people's mindset really shifting, and now people are thinking a lot more about their health and their families. And what's interesting, is what we're finding, and we're talking with our agents, is that feedback that they're getting is if you ask the consumer, a retired individual 3 months ago, the number one concern in retirement was outliving their income, and really that was almost like number 1, 2, and 3. Like that was their primary focus. And now if you were to ask those same individuals, like, what is it? It's really around not only that, but their health, their families. Mm-hmm. And I think to your point earlier, it opens the door for a much more holistic conversation. Whether it's a product that has more features and benefits, like one of our products, offers critical care benefits and a death benefit along with guaranteed income. Yeah. And we're seeing obviously a lot more focus on that product, but it's a much more holistic approach, whether it's generated through one or multiple products. Right. So it's definitely an opportunity to expand your business horizon and view it from a much broader holistic approach.
And this is the time to take advantage of it, because who knows what happens a year from now. There's how fickle people can be. So that's why don't waste this crisis now.
Yeah, like if I had put a client in an FIA in February, right? Wow, right. What a gift that would have been for somebody's retirement. So I think we can't think about the bigger purpose. And Joe, you talked about this. I think we've had a lot of insurance agents. We did over. I remember when, 2000 time period. I'm not an insurance agent. I'm a financial advisor, right? And I think it kind of puts you in it creates a different connection when you're talking about insurance, the value of what the protection is versus I'm going to pick stocks for you. And if I have to remake, how do I start to remake my practice? Is if I've kind of gone down the RAA, or I'm totally focused on returns to I'm totally focused on risk protection and making sure that you behave rationally when your instincts say not.
Well, I think it's recognizing your own personal situation. I mean, that's the thing that transformed me, right? I was at MetLife for years, and I never mentioned my personal thing. My mother was widowed. I was very young and what have you. And I never made that connection in my business in terms of who I was and what I was doing. And then I looked at it. My father cashed in a $100,000 New York life policy in 1952, 6 months before being killed in a car crash, right? You know what $100,000 was in 1952? You could buy a kick-ass house for $8,000, for Christ's sake. I think what has to happen is we've got to take this out of the left brain type of approach, more towards, thinking about your own story, I mean, I use the holistic approach, which you were talking about, Ramsey. I use my own planner, George Riley, right? So this is what I have, okay? I have a great pension, but my wife gets less if I die. So I have a substantial life policy that'll more than offset that, okay? The other thing that I have is I have a second to die. You know what? A lot of people are afraid to spend money to make a financial decision. Why? Because, what about the kids? The hell with the kids. The kids get the second to die, and that's where it is, and I got freedom to spend the rest of it, okay? I've got some annuities, okay? And the annuities right now, despite the fact that the market really crashed, the income balances that I have on these variable annuities is still growing at 6 or 5%. And I know that I can start taking money out at 6 or 5% on a guaranteed basis for the rest of my life. Now, there's a lot of people who are taking taxable SWIPs, not that those are wrong, that where they were taking around 3% out, now have to go to maybe to 10% to make up for the same income, which means they're going to run out of money. And then I have long-term care. My wife and I have $500 a day, and it continues to grow. And that means the kids don't have to take care of me. So I feel pretty good about George. And think about, I think for people who've sold some of these products, you know, the financial press is always banging on their heads, you know. So if you bought these lousy index products, guess what? It minimized the downside, and you know, you still have some upside. If you sold VAs, you got it for income purposes, right? What it means is that the income balance continued to grow. How would you feel about that in an environment like this, right? And then things like long-term care and all of this other stuff. The idea is now's the time to rise and shine, because people feel losses twice as bad as they feel gains. And it's very difficult if you're just in wealth management to then turn around and say, hey, look at this other stuff that you have in environments like this. And this is where it catches up to you when you get hit by this.
Hey, listen, Joe, it's been absolutely phenomenal. It's been thank you for coming on our show. Let me ask you a couple questions. So imagine I'm an independent annuity advisor. I want to get more of you. What do I do? Books, tapes?
Cool. Well, just it's josephjordan.com. You can get on my website and take a look at that. I have, by the way, one other thing that I'm a big proponent for is the feminize the business. And I'm doing that not because I think it's fair or it's good. Going forward is being able to create trust in relationships is really crucial. It's the big differentiator. And women do that instinctively. So anyway, the reason I brought it up is I have a video program and a audio program, which is Life of Significance, a Woman's Perspective. And it's 13 stories from 12 women and the impact they have on their clients. The other one is Life of Significance, When Business Becomes Personal. And what it is small businesses. Those are great, huge markets. And of course, they're really getting hammered now. But I was never, when I was selling, I was always afraid to go to the small business because there's an accountant and lawyer and blow me out, you know? So it's really the idea of stories that helps bring that together. And the book is Living a Life of Significance. And you can look it up on my website. I also have on there a link that if people click on the link, I can send them 2 stories a month free for 6 months. Why? I want them to begin to think about the fact that they do live a significant life because of what they do. And the other is to increase the repertoire of stories, especially a lot of these millennials, you know. It's stories that's connecting. They have all these emojis and stuff. They know how to talk to people, you know. So I'm joking, but you know what I'm saying. So that's what it is. And a lot of times when I get up and talk, and I heard someone speak in a financial thing, I said, I'm like Monty Python, now for something completely different. And I think it's in vogue now, and it's hot. So don't waste this crisis.
Oh, this is great. So, Ramsey, Mark, any other questions for Joe before?
Just a quick comment. So, Joe, so thank you for mentioning that last issue. Feminizing the business. I think it's a great idea, and we're having more. We've had more female guests on this show, so I hope we'll continue to do that. And certainly, as I build out my own business, I try as much as possible to sort of bring women onto the team. It's been fantastic and rewarding. So thank you for mentioning that.
Mark?
Yeah, I guess one quick closing question for Joe is, obviously, we've seen a lot of different financial crises over the years, 2007, 2008, 2000, 2002, major market corrections. This was obviously one of the fastest drops into a correction that we've seen in history. I guess any changes in terms of your message today versus 2007, 8, 2000 to 2002? As it relates to an advisor's perspective?
No, as I said, it hasn't. It's actually reinforced the message, and that's a great question. Because as I said, I lived through, 07, 08, the near bear market of 2011. We also had the Christmas Eve massacre on the 18th, right? And actually, the last bear market we had up until this one was 07, 09, right? But we had a couple of near misses, all right? So there was one, I think it was in 98. The other one was 11, and the other one was the Christmas Eve massacre. And the market went down almost 20%. You know, like the last one, the Christmas Eve massacre was 19.8. It's about as close as you could get. And what you do is you take a look at the trough and the gain. And right now, from the trough of, I don't know it off the top of my head, of the Christmas Eve massacre is substantially lower than where the S&P 500 is now. That's why one of the key issues that we deal with is a well-timed intervention can be worth a decade's worth of fees. So when someone says they're ripping you off, if you arrive at the right time, buy high and sell low does not work. And I know, and I am convinced that we will continue to grow out of this thing. And the fact of the matter is that's the emotional part. When the market goes down, people absolutely freak. And we had, well, I don't know if you remember this, but we had a woman who was suing us. This was around the dot-com crash, because she was only up 18%, and a lot of her friends were up like 36%. You know, that's how crazy it gets.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing that you provide, and that's the thing that no one, the regulators don't understand, and a lot of I mean, Thaler even said, he said, economics would be a great science if it only dealt with the way people actually behave versus the way they're supposed to behave. And that's really what our thing is. So it doesn't change at all. I think that investing in the equity markets is the best thing people can do as a hedge to inflation. But it's also good to have multiple different products that help to offset some of the other frailties in life.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Well, listen, Joe, thanks so much for the time. And as always, you have some great advice that's incredibly timely. And listen, we'll look forward to hopefully meeting you in the flesh at some point in the near future.
Oh, is this the one I'm not getting paid for? No.
Right. I'll give you some virtual money here, right? It's come through.
That's great, man. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. It's been great being with you guys.
Joe, thanks.
Joe. Real pleasure.
Mark, thanks. And
Thank you,
listen,
guys.
be sure to tune in again next week for another episode of That Annuity Show.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend us on iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information at thatannuityshow.com.